So at this point, we've created a really cool flower icon to use as a logo for our company, but now we need to add the name of the company, Hansel and Petal, to complete our logo. Now I want the text to actually appear on the right side of this icon, so I'm going to hold down the space bar to activate my hand tool, and I'm simply going to click and drag while holding down the space bar just to reposition this over to the side. Next, I'm going to go ahead now and choose my type tool here, and I'm going to be creating a point text object now, so I'm simply going to click once and release the mouse so that I get a blinking cursor. I could type in the name of the company. In this case here, it's Hansel and Petal, so I'll type in Hansel. Now, because of the design that I'm going to be using, I'm actually not going to put a space in between these characters here. I want it to read as one long word. So I'm going to hit an ampersand here, and then type in Petal for Hansel and Petal. And now I want to style this text, so I'm going to switch now for a moment here to my selection tool, and then right here from the control panel, I'm going to switch the font, and I'll maybe use something like, maybe Chaparral Pro is a nice typeface to use. I'll leave it set right now to the regular style, and I'll change the point size here to 72 point. It's pretty big and it kind of runs off the screen now, but don't worry about that for now. I can actually press Command minus or Control minus to zoom out just a little bit so I could see more of this and kind of reposition this on my screen. But I'd like to make some adjustments to how the text actually appears. You'll notice that the spaces between each of the characters are not necessarily even or the same. Many times when creating a logo, a designer needs to go in and adjust the kerning, or the amount of space that appears between each of the characters, to get a better look. I want to get a head start here with a setting that appears inside of the character panel inside of Illustrator. A quick way to access the character panel is to simply click on the word character right here inside of the control panel. The kerning is actually controlled by this setting right here where it says AV, and I'm going to click on this little pop-up here and choose optical. This is basically an automatic setting where Illustrator will go in and automatically distribute all the spaces between the characters so that they're somewhat similar from an optical perspective. However, I still may want to make small adjustments. For example, right here, the P and the E have a little bit of an extra space between them, and I might want to adjust that manually. So to do that, I'm going to switch now back to my type tool, and I'm going to click so that my cursor now appears blinking right in between the letters P and E. I'm going to press and hold down the Option key on my keyboard, or Alt on Windows, and at the same time, I'm also going to tap the left arrow. And notice that when I do that, it moved the E, T, A, and L, or basically anything after that cursor, kind of nudged it to the left. So now I have less space that appears between the P and the E, and I'm much happier with that result. Even though I wanted the Hansel and Petal to kind of read as one whole word, I do want to add just a little bit more space around the ampersand. Now, I didn't want full spaces, but what I could do is use kerning to just add a little bit extra space here. So I'm going to move my cursor right here between these two characters, hold down my Option key, but now hit the right arrow once, or maybe even twice. Then I'll move my cursor right about over here, click, and then Option right arrow about once right there. And now I have the extra space that I need on either side of that ampersand. Getting the kerning right is really important when setting text for logos. The main reason why is because you want logos to be easily recognizable and readable. So you want to make sure that just at a quick glance you can easily read and understand what that word is. Now, to make this logo fit just a little bit more nicely together with this flower, let's change the color of the text. I'll switch to my regular selection tool. Notice that right now the text object is automatically selected. And since I'm using a theme here of green colors, I'm going to use just a little bit of a darker green for this text. For that added touch, I'm also going to use a lighter color just for the ampersand itself. I could switch back to the type tool to just select that one character, but here's a great shortcut. Since I have my selection tool currently active, and I know that I want to go ahead and make a text selection inside of that text object, I can just double click on the text object and Illustrator will automatically switch me from the selection tool to the type tool. I can now click and drag to highlight just the ampersand itself and change its color by choosing a different color in the swatches panel. So at this point, I could switch back now to the regular selection tool, deselect this, and I'll zoom out just a little bit here and reposition my artboard a little bit so that I can assemble and position the final logo. I'm going to press Command A or Control A just to select everything and position them so they all fit now inside the page itself. I'll click on a blank area to deselect, And we haven't learned about groups yet, but since I want to make it easy to go ahead now and select these different elements at any one time, I'm going to click and drag to marquee select all the elements now inside of the flower itself. And I'm going to go to the Object menu, and I'm going to choose Group. This now gets treated as if it were one object whenever I select it, which makes it easier to move it around. Since the text is really one text object, it kind of acts as a group anyway. And I'm simply going to reposition this text now, just about right over here, where I want it to fall, right about where the flower is. I'll then press Command A to select all the elements right here, basically the group and the text object. And I want to group these two together as well. I'm going to press Command G or Control G to basically create a group using the keyboard shortcut instead of the menu command. And now I've completed my logo. I now have a single group that is made of a beautiful flower and some text. Remember, to create that flower, we started off by just creating some simple circles. We used the Shape Builder tool to both simultaneously color and combine those elements together in the way that we wanted to, and then we simply added some text, put it into position, and we are left with a beautiful logo that we can now use for artwork. We're almost done here. We just want to go ahead now and save this logo so that we can easily use it. To do so, let's go to the File menu here. Let's choose Save. I'm going to choose to place this on my desktop over here. And I'm going to make sure that where it says Format, I have my file saved as the Adobe Illustrator or native file format. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Hansel Petal Logo. And I'm going to click on the Save button, which brings up the Illustrator Options dialog box. We're going to go through these options later on in our title, but for now, I just want to make sure that I'm saving this as a native Illustrator CS5 version, which it says right here, and I'm going to click OK using the default settings. At this point, my logo is ready to be used just about anywhere. I could take this logo and now place it into InDesign, into a layout. I could bring it into Photoshop. I could send it to Flash if I want to use it for a web design. And I can even bring it into Premiere Pro or After Effects if I'm working on a video project. In fact, this is one of the main reasons why many people choose to create their logos here inside of Illustrator, because once you create it here, you can use that logo virtually anywhere else.